people would ask me, I'm not kidding, can you teach me how to be more real? And no, I can't. I mean, but it's because they, this upbringing of like the should Bible and, you're supposed to be this way and they don't know how, what they do. It's inherent. It's just they haven't allowed it. So people will come to people like us, let's say, and it's so much more challenging to let themselves play. It's like, it's almost like torturous until it's not.
Hello, everyone. And today is really special because we have our first guest. Jennifer, you are our first guest. So welcome. And
welcome,
happy
Jen.
to have you.
Hey, I want to just let everybody know a little bit about Jen. Met Jen in Ojai, where she had moved, has an amazing story about manifesting her home here in Ojai. But one of the things I want you to know about Jen is that her heart is so ginormous that wherever she goes in the world, she collects people and gives them the experience. And one of the things I experienced with you, Jen, is that you give people the sense that they can, not only you can have this, but also I've got you. I've got your back. And she's got, she reminds herself with tattoos. And in fact, one of the things that I wanted to ask you is how you tell us more about the whole I got you. Sure. And how you relate to that personally, how you came to that.
Yeah, so I was doing that. I wasn't doing that just to show you the paint all over me because I started painting a year ago, but my tattoo, I have 3 tattoos. My first one was I got you. And I got that when I was 44. How I came about that? Well, I think the origin story is when I was 8, my person, my everything, my dad, and I had a fight. He was my everything. And he told me I was being bad. And I was making him not feel good. He was not feeling well. And I said, I hate you. And then he dropped that. And I just short scripted it, but that's what happened. And so my sense of safety went. And, when you're 8, you're not done being formed. And so that was kind of like my baseline, feeling lack and not safe. And so my favorite words, my other tattoo is, it's going to be okay. Mm-hmm. So you can see it, but it's 3 little birds on the infinity sign, and 3 little birds is Bob Marley. Every little thing is going to be all right times infinity. So it's very cute. Sometimes I'll show it to Charlie, like if he's upset and I go, what's that? And he goes, every little thing's going to be okay times infinity. So I got it's going to be okay was what I craved to hear all my life, like even as a little girl, I go, it's going to be okay, right? It's going to be okay, right? Mm-hmm. And I essentially married someone for safety. Like safety was my thing. I just had to feel like no one was going to drop dead. Everything was going to be safe, So there's that. And then I realized, though, just inherently, I was always that person that allowed people to feel safe. Mm-hmm. And whether that was because of my trauma or not, don't know, don't care really. It definitely amplified it, so if that's the thing I want the most in the world is safety, I became that ultimately. Mm-hmm. Like I become that for people. And I joke, it's not really a joke that I suck at most things, but what I'm good at, I'm really, really good at. I'm okay with that too. Cause what I suck at, I'll ask for help for, but I'm really good at allowing, I guess, being disarming and just being myself and appreciating what's great about people. And so they feel really comfortable. That's been my experience. And so, that sense of safety. And then when I was waitressing, I was, stuck, although I wasn't really, I just felt stuck at this same waitressing job for 14 years. And I became obsessed with Wayne Dyer per my mom, inflicting him upon me, but his words really changed my life. And I remember him saying, "How may I serve?" And, I would joke, like, he wasn't reinventing the wheel. None of us really are. It's like Jesus, probably, although I always say I'm a Jew. I never grew up with Jesus, but how may I serve? And I thought about that and how much of my life I wasn't at this time living from that place. I was living from a lot of lack. Mm-hmm. I was sort of pretending to be an actress. Like, I didn't really want to be, but I didn't know what else to do. And I thought someone would come and like save me and discover me at the restaurant. But my friends would book jobs and my first thought would be like, why not me? What's wrong with me? There's not enough. And it really hit me hard. I started crying when he said, how may I serve? Because I thought, gosh, everything mostly is coming from a place of lack. And something about that question just really shook me. And from that moment on, a shift happened. And I started really living my life from asking that every day, how may I serve? But then I look back and I realized just my way of being in the world was already kind of, I got you. Mm-hmm. And so I got you and it's going to be okay are very intertwined. And then it may seem selfish, and I think selfishness has a bad rap, but when we, I call it the I got you effect. So when we lift other people up and we see what it does for them, but also what it does for us and for anyone that bears witness. So it's just this energetic exchange all around. And it feels good. And I was like, oh, this feels good. It's like a natural high, but it just really lifts me up. And I could see the power in that. And the tattoo is facing this way. So it's kind of on its side so that I look at it and remember to also have me, not just everyone else.
Yes.
It's funny, Jen, because so our story is a little different. I heard of you many years ago from Frank, which actually I had met through you, Katie, and he spoke of you always like, you two are going to love each other. And then we never met. Many years later, you're in Paris. And Katie tells me, Jen is in Paris. And I'm like, oh my God, let's meet here.
Not this summer, but this little more than a year ago. Yeah.
A year ago, exactly. And somehow weather, I don't even remember, but we don't
I do. Sophie, it was 110 degrees.
Yes, it was hot. So Paris is no bueno when it's that hot. So no air conditioning anywhere. It's really, really hot. But the part that really touched me right this moment is that my father passed away 8 years ago. So 8 years, interestingly, when you were 8 as well. But the dream I had with him that night, the night after, was him saying, tout va bien aller, which is French for everything is going to be okay. How bizarre is that?
Oh, that's so touching. That makes me cry. That's really, really touching.
And my father was not someone that I would, not in tune, this is not someone I felt that, none of that, but everything is going to be okay in his French voice. So here we are.
It's so calming, and it's I really think we all crave that, it's like a hand on your forehead or your chest or whatever your place is, and exhale. Beautiful.
I just love that. And I think that not only comes through in your book, your first book on being human, but it comes through so clearly wherever you show up, you create a space of safety, but not just safety, a space where people can include all of the different aspects of them, their weirdness, their, how they feel they've screwed up, and all of that gets to be included and played with. And I just wondered if you had any suggestions for people who have not yet experienced welcoming all the different aspects of themselves.
Yeah, I have a ton, and something really interesting I've noticed. It's I feel like it's like a hack, but it's not, is, for example, I have a writing workshop coming up, a virtual one on November 4th. And that's how I make my living, really, is these various things I do. And so sometimes it's exhausting. I hustle and promote it on social media, blah, 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 or newsletters that no one really opens. And so I always joke, but I'm not joking, that weirdo is a real endearing term for me. So if I call you a weirdo, it's like, ugh, I love, we're all weirdos. Anyone that says they're not is kidding themselves, right? And so I wrote, what I started to notice in my workshops and my retreats is like people would come, let's say to Italy, and in the end they'd admit, they go, well, at first I didn't want to come because I thought like, I'm not going to fit in, or everyone else is so much smarter, or X, Y, or Z. And even after they got there, they're like, I don't know, the first couple of days, I was really feeling like I don't belong here. By the end, and so I thought, gosh, everyone feels that way. Let's just acknowledge that. So I started like playing around with like, all right, if you feel like you're not going to fit in, if you feel like you're a total weirdo or you suck, you don't, all these things, shoot me an email. I'm telling you, like a line around the block. And I was like, oh.
Wow.
So sort of, and it's sort of a lighthearted way to take the piss out of ourselves and have a little fun with ourselves, like we all feel weird and awkward and like, so just like acknowledge it and be silly. I'll say, for example, my virtual stuff is the easiest stuff for me to make accessible. Italy, I paid thousands of dollars to rent that villa. I can't really do it. Virtual, we could do whatever we want. So I'll say to people, if money's an issue, email me. Don't be weird. Be weird, but not about that. Send me a super awkward email and I will write you back very awkward, and the emails always start off, hi, Jen, you told me to send you a super awkward email. So here I am. So it's like, I'm inviting, like, I'm like, give me your weirdest self. Mm-hmm. So there's that, I really believe like levity is the most important thing to me. So the imitation, one of the imitations is to always find the funny and just kind of make fun of yourself. And I don't mean be self-deprecating, but like, I'm always like, oh, Jen, get over yourself. Just sort of like lighten up, not take ourselves so seriously in any of the ways. And the other thing is try new things, allow room for discovery. Like this thing with me painting, I started a little more than a year ago. And I mean, I'm telling you, I can't even draw a stick figure, literally. And at 47 years old, I picked up a paintbrush because it was my son's birthday party and I got art for the kids and I can't stop. Like I called myself, I said it was an addiction. And Katie said, no, what did you say? Genius unfolding or something like.
I think it's a calling for you.
Yes. But it's incredible. And I find this really interesting thing happen where people will come over and they're like, wow. Whether it's good or not isn't the point. Whether they're like wowing, the reason they're wowing mostly is because they're like, I couldn't do that. Meaning I couldn't just try something new that I might suck at, or I don't know how to do at X, Y, or Z age. So it's like giving ourselves permission, the way I word it is give yourself permission to suck. Write a rubbish poem, make some bad art. So most of it I'd say for me is just having a sense of humor. If you can drop into that space, game on.
Well, it sounds like you do that by what we call play, because our podcast is Be, Love, Play. And the love is in go ahead and show up however you are. And the play is with just exaggerate the things you suck at or the things that you're scared out. Just go ahead and play with them and bring them forward because you're safe to do that.
And you know what else is what I love, I'll bring all these people to Italy, not all, but like 20 something. And like most of them, maybe one person was like, I write poetry. The rest are like, ah. And so I give them a prompt and they write and the stuff is gorgeous. So what's funny is most of the people that are just so convinced how sucky they are and how terrible they be don't. It's magnificent. And if we could take the good out of it, the idea of all these binary, like good, is it good? Is it available? We could take all that out, and this happened later in life. I'm telling you, I mean, I've always had a similar personality, but I struggled so much more with depression. And like this sense of play really is on the last couple of years, which also makes me proud because I look around and I don't see that many people giving themselves permission. It's almost like, I call it the ITG, the imaginary time gods. It's like, well, too late for me. I missed that boat.
Says who?
No, there's no boat.
Yeah.
You got to build the boat. You are the boat.
They did an experiment a few years ago where they put a bunch of children, same age, teens, in 2 separate rooms. In one room, lots of art, both rooms, lots of art. In one room, they said, have fun. You're here for the afternoon. Just play, laugh, just paint, do whatever. The other room, they said, well, you paint. And then at the end of the day, we're going to see which one is the best painting.
Ugh.
And then at the end of the day, of course, the room that was playing was creative and innovative and collaborative. The kids were helping each other. The other room, the kids were like, protecting and fearing and smaller. And just from the get-go, it created this, that
makes me emotional.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. A lot of kids are exposed to an environment that tells them you're too much, you're too loud, so people start to shrink exactly until, they meet someone like Katie or someone like you. And it's like it cracks this thing, right? You guys it cracks somehow.
Well, and I think, I wasn't particularly raised that way. I was raised by a wacky mom. My dad died when I was 8. And so, but a lot of people are raised that way. And so it's like the unlearning and the undoing and the, it's like their baseline is that. Mm-hmm. And so it is, they meet people like us and they're like, wow. I mean, I've told this a bunch because I find it fascinating. When I started coaching during COVID, because I lost all my income, and it's what I do anyway, but one-on-one, and which isn't my jam. I prefer my zone of genius, as you would call it, is group energy. But people would ask me, I'm not kidding, can you teach me how to be more real? Wow. I know I can't. I mean, and so, but it's because they, this upbringing of like the should Bible and, you're supposed to be this way and they don't know how, what they do. It's inherent. It's just, they haven't allowed it. Mm-hmm. And so people will come to people like us, let's say, and it's so much more challenging to let themselves play. It's like, mm-hmm. It's almost like torturous until it's not.
And my sense is that your willingness to go anywhere, to, if they toss something to you, you'll play with it and you'll toss it back with something new that's unexpected to them. I think as a catalyst for letting go of those strictures that don't allow us to invent and play. And so your being generates that permission that people can then catalyze and osmose from what they experience with you and find it in themselves.
Yeah. Oh, I love that.
Yeah. And then that, sort of takes the lid off, and then all of that, like a pinball machine can start really.
I love that. I love really catalyze, osmose, alchemize, all those words. And the third tattoo I have is allow. And because it's such a powerful verb. And I think about, it's interesting because it's such a powerful verb. And but when we allow it, when we're giving ourselves the allowance, rather than it's like, well, are you allowed to do that? And all these other supposed permissive permission givers, like, who are they? Like the ubiquitous they. Who are they? But it's when we allow. And so one of the questions I ask all the time, myself, but anyone, is like, what are you allowing in your life? And really pause with that, and without judgment as best as we can. Like, think of it like just like a grocery list, like, and really look at it. And some of the things are like, make me feel like a rock star, and some I'm like, oh, yikes. And Katie, you've really taught me so much, and not by lecturing, teaching, but just by your way of being, modeling, I call it role model behavior, but like allowing what's a full body yes, or allowing play, or, you'll ask me, is it nourishing for you, or to reframe things. And so we can go, and what am I allowing? Oh, well, I'm allowing myself to scroll on the internet and compare myself and feel like shit all day. That's not intentional. And so when we look at what we're allowing, honestly, without judgment and without allowing it to turn into a sort of like a self-deprecating, I'm going to beat myself up thing, but rather, as you would say, what do I want to recommit to? It's so powerful.
I'm curious. That's really a question for both of you, but I'm curious to the beginning of that, because I don't know, you already spoke of your mother, Jen, and I know a lot about Katie's mother and certainly mine. But are we born with this desire to discover who we are? Like some people seem to not have that. Like they seem to be kind of willing to stay in this like, life, you know? But I'm like, is it inherent? Like, do we come with it, or it happens because life has us do it? Like, what do you guys think?
I'll defer to Katie for your answer first.
Well, my sense is that that some people find their purpose more solo through just interacting with the world, and some people by interacting with other people, and being and my sense is that if you have the opportunity to be around someone whose presence gives permission, then you can find what is it that is really me, because we've had so many thousands of messages from outside about how we're supposed to be,
right?
Where somebody just shows up authentic and real. It's like a splash of wonderful, like having the water roll over you in the middle of a hot summer. It's that a whole new possibility. And my sense is also that I know this for me, that my presence is not really for everybody. So I was one of the too much people, and I know that both of you are, but I was always kind of told to tone it down. And so when I decided I'm not going to tone it down anymore, I'm going to just be me, and you either like it or you don't, but I'm going to let me be. And I see that so much in you, Jen, that you're just like, here I am. And there's no question about, here I am.
But to speak to that, what's so funny is like, people are like, I still care what people think. And also, I'll be in a room, let's say I have 100 people, and I'll go, how many of you don't care what anyone thinks? And no one raises their hand. So I think it's such a sort of misnomer. Is that the right word? When people go, you just can't care what people think. I don't know, crack of shit.
Yeah.
What kind of advice is that? It's like, really? No, my aim is to not let it dictate my choices, not let it shut me down as much, but we don't not care, right? So it's not, yes, that absolutely, I am that way, and way more than I ever was. That's why I'll joke, or not really joke, I'll say I'm so much more attractive and hotter now than I was in my 20s, and it has nothing to do with this. It's because I don't hate myself. I mean, I hated myself back then, and I really am so utterly comfortable in my skin. But I'm also really sensitive, so, and I do take things personally. So I will never, and I have never gone on Amazon and read my reviews. I simply don't see the point, because I know how sensitive I am, and like I'll get in my head. So I know myself, and I'm also able to not take myself too seriously, like know that about myself. And there's a yes and I'm also really comfortable being me. But I also don't need to sit there and read about all the people that are like, she's too much, or I didn't like her book, or, it's, again, it's come more as I have gotten older. That's what I think is so delicious and tricky and weird and rude, frankly, about getting older, because it's like I've gotten so much better, but like my back hurts more, my deafness is more. It's like, all the things that happen when we're older, but I'm just such a better me because I'm just more comfortable with myself.
Well, what I'm hearing is that you've genuinely learned to love yourself.
Most days, or I do. Some days I don't like myself, but I do love myself.
Yes. So you can love yourself and say, that sucked. I just didn't like that. And what I experience being around you, and I see you around other people, is that you're comfortable. You call being comfortable in your skin is that you genuinely love yourself. And it's so rare for people to just be, like, here's who I am, and sometimes I suck, and sometimes I'm weird, and then, but from the allowing and I've got this. What I get is the experience of loving, which people say all you need to do is learn how to love yourself, but you are really demonstrating that where you show up.
Katie says things and I want to like bottle them and, I'm like, experience of loving. I mean, so much about experience. And also, and I know, look, we're so complicated. Like there's so many facets to all of us, right? So part of me is hearing you say that and I'm like, who's she talking about? Because, and yet I know it's true. And some days, here's a confession. I was having a really hard day yesterday and I'm going to go hang out with Katie after. And I was going to, I'm really depressed and I can't come over. And I didn't. And some days, let's call it being out of alignment, right? Like, and that happens when, I don't know, we don't get enough sleep. I drank an extra glass of wine. Something's happening, externally. Look what's happening in the world right now, all these things. And so it's, and because I'm a sensitive being, as are you both, it's easy to get out of alignment. When I'm out of alignment is when I call it the inner asshole that gets loud and I don't love myself. Bleh. I just want to go back to bed. But I think the big thing is I'm able to talk about that and I'm able to share that. And so my commitment is never that I'm going to share everything with everyone. No, but I'm not going to hide in shame. Mm-hmm. No. So I can talk about that. And it doesn't mean I don't love myself overall. It means I have bad, shitty days sometimes or, whatever it may be. And I could talk about that without feeling like, I'm supposed to be this inspirational figure, whatever. No, I'm just me.
Maybe that's one of the things we have as in our age is these incredible friends, because I would refer to Katie as well. Like when I first met you, Katie, which was, well, we've been counting maybe 20 years, you introduced me to someone and you were like, like you spoke of me similarly to what Jen just said.
You just looked like Katie when you did that. She does that. It's funny. You're just like literally.
That's how much osmosis, right? But I remember walking out of you introducing me that way, and the words don't matter. I don't remember what you said. I remember there was something creative in there, but I don't remember the exact words. But I walked away with like, oh, and I trust you, So someone you trust and respect says something about you that nobody's ever said before, it starts to fill the bucket, it starts to so when I get depressed or sad or whatever, I have the bucket. It's like with each other, we've been filling each other's buckets that way.
Sophie, Katie, you know what? There's so many magical parts of
Be
her.
Be ready for the bucket, Katie. We're coming at you.
What I most appreciate about you, now I can't say most because there's so many and they're all sort of equal, but you really see, and not only do you really see, but you're able to distill it and come up with like words that would describe it and appreciate it with the words, but also with your being. So it's not just the words, although that's amazing, because sometimes that's the hardest part to describe ourselves or what we do, or, especially through someone else's eye, but you really see people. I mean, that's a gift you have. And who knows, like going back to your original question, Sophie, which I'm not even sure I understand or I comprehended. I don't think it even matters, but like, I think you just came in with that. You know what I mean? Like we all have these like superpowers and that's one of yours. You really see, like you see through the bullshit. I remember, Sophie, when I first fell in love with Henry, it's a funny story, but before Katie didn't know his last name, I was just kind of showing her text, no photo, nothing. And she says, can I tell the story?
Sure, please. Yeah.
We're sitting on my couch where we spent a lot of time. And she looks at me and she goes, well, and also, Katie, I had never asked her any opinions on my marriage or anything. And once I did, then she shared everything. But she basically was like, well, I'm not going to just offer up unsolicited advice. But now that you asked, let me tell you. And I was like, oh, I thought I had like everyone fooled. So I tell her about Henry and she's like listening and she goes, well, I'll tell you, I'll be able to tell within 15 seconds if he's full of shit, this Henry. Mm-hmm. And I was like, whew. My heart was beating because I knew it was true. Okay. So Sophie, cut to, I don't know when, how much later, a couple months? No, maybe a couple weeks. And mind you, by this time, Henry and I had fallen in love over FaceTime and texting. Cuckoo. And so we meet up, realize it's the real thing. And I know he's not full of shit. And I'm like, so full body, yes. But I still am like, I'm going to take him. I'm going to get the Katie test. Yeah. I'm nervous. I'm still nervous though. Cause I'm like, what if she sees, she sees something. And so he thinks we're going to lunch. We have separate cars. And I say, just follow me, go to this address. And we knock on the door. She opens the door and all of a sudden they hug, they start embracing for like 5 minutes. And I'm like, I step back, I go, I'm really confused. I'm really confused right now. What's happening? I was bringing you here to get vetted.
You vetted him exactly like that.
Isn't it funny? Well, no, Katie, will you tell her why?
Well, because I knew Henry. I met Henry. Henry was in the film that the Spiritual Cinema Circle created called Conversations with God. He was the lead actor. And so I had known him. I hadn't seen him for many, many years.
But she also didn't know because I didn't say last name or show a picture.
Right. So I didn't know. But when I opened the door, I went, oh, I know you.
I was like, foiled.
Oh my God. That's funny because that reminds me when we first met, Katie, it was actually supposedly a meeting with my ex-husband and your husband to play golf or do something. I forget what. But the entire lunch, you two were really focused on me, you and Gay. And when we walked out on the park, I will never forget. We walked out to the parking lot and you basically shook Mark's hand. It was like this. It wasn't cold, but it was just like, okay, goodbye. And you hugged me like I had found a home. It was so
I love
deep.
That, found a home.
And he, like weeks later, he was cheating on me, and weeks later you were like, yeah, I saw that one coming. Yeah. Oh, like what a
you just look like Katie again. I swear, when you imitate her, it's almost like hilarious. It's like,
well, that's the biggest compliment you can give me.
Oh, well, what I'm experiencing is how much we are catalyzed by who we hang out with. And I was just remembering that way back when I was first in college and taking psychology classes, one thing that really became clear to me is that we are more influenced by our environment than any other factor. So,
isn't that wild?
So who we hang out with and who we choose to play with is either a source of play and nourishment and creativity, or a source of our old stories. Yep. And I love to hang out with people who are willing to invent new stories.
I think this is one of the reasons why, I call them like repeat offenders. People will come to Italy and they come back again and again because I think the most magical thing that happens is these friendships that are, in fact, my Italy retreat last month, about 10 of them are flying out the first week of December. They were strangers before a week for my birthday. They rented a house in Hollywood, but it's this experience. Because a lot of people will look at me and they'll feel envy, like you have these friendships, this and that. Now, I am very rich in friendships and I've always been blessed with that. That is a natural gift, but I'm not special in that. What it is I'm committed to staying open. Mm-hmm. And now I'm also very discerning. But I say to people, keep your eyes open. Your people are everywhere. You just have to stay open. And that, I think the issue is a lot of people don't. But so they come to this my thing and they find this community and they want it more and more. But see, it's available to all of us. And it's that a couple of things. One, we don't allow it. or we've already decided beforehand it's not, or we're keeping our eyes down, our heart closed metaphorically, but it's staying open. And sometimes it's a little harder. Sometimes we have to dig a little deeper, but we're all, our people are there.
It's
absolutely.
It reminds me of your tattoo, Jen, too, when you said, do we like, I can think of 10 years, 20 years ago, this conversation would have scared me. I've grown to be willing to be in a room with people that are my people, but for a long time, I would have judged myself, compared, as you were saying earlier, Jen. And it's it takes me like, I don't deserve to be in this room, because everybody deserves to be in this room. But this is my chair. I'm sitting right here. That's okay. And to be willing to accept that of oneself, I think, is a big step in our journey.
Something I say in my new book, which is like, I've been procrastinating, and all I've been doing is making art, which a lot of people, probably including Katie, will say, well, that is part of your writing. And I know that it is, but I'm actually in the point now, the hardest part for me, which is why I'm avoiding. It's like the structural, the editing. But something I say a lot, and Katie's in my book a lot, they're probably like, I think she's obsessed with this person. My stepdad asked me the other day, he goes, I think you're gay, because I started painting and all I paint are naked ladies. But that's because I don't know how to draw. And it's like all I could figure out. And I was like, well, I mean, I am. I just don't necessarily want the sex part, but I am. But anyway, Katie is in the book a lot. And I talk about, I surround myself, and I think this is really important, with people I want to be like. Mm-hmm. Notice I did not say people I want to be. And I clarify, because another weird thing on social media that I get, and I find this to be so creepy, people will go, I want your life. I want to be you, Jen. Mm. I'm not kidding. And it's not like an anomaly. It's a lot. And it's, no, you don't. But so I don't surround myself with people I want to be, but be like. So like Katie, your curiosity, your play, Sophie, your listening, I surround myself with people who have qualities or whatever it might be, energy, their generosity, their heart, that I want to be like. Because we're contagious beings.
Yeah. Yeah, we definitely osmose from people. We get things from people. It's almost like, we breathe them in. And so who you surround yourself with are the people you are going to become more like. And so choosing the qualities that you want to be around. And the ones that we've chosen that really make a difference are people you can be with, people who really love themselves or are willing to love themselves, what you're calling being open, just being willing to. And then that leads to play, which is how invention happens.
That's a beautiful place to bring us to a close with this conversation. Although let's have many more. I know. We should have them every week. This should be a 3 people show instead of 2. I'm curious, maybe both of you, if I said be, play, love, like what are words? And we've said many in the show, but like what are one word that for you would kind of like 1 or 2 words that would really kind of be and play and love? Like what comes to mind?
So because, I'm deaf, it sounds like you're saying eat. You're saying be. I know. You're saying be, play, love.
Yes.
I mean, I want to say allow, but I've already said that a lot. So, and I know, Katie, you're going to dig this one, but wonder.
Oh,
beautiful. Beautiful. Wonder. What was coming to me was explore.
Oh, yeah.
Curiosity.
Yeah.
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 Which brings back Gay. When I first met Gay, and he taught me this, like, I wonder.
The famous move, which I still use and teach people because it shifts me into curiosity and wonder. Mm-hmm. So that's just, that's lovely.
Hope you have Gay on one day just to tell jokes. Look, I know Gay, Mr. Hendricks, Katie's husband, the husband of Katie is famous for, all the books, but I don't think he's famous yet for his joke telling. And I'm just saying, he has a whole other.
Funny. He is funny as fuck. I'm with you.
Yeah, he is really, really funny. That's a great suggestion, Jen.
I'm just saying. I just think it's like, look, I don't know what's next. He's written a YA. I mean, what doesn't he do? But now it's like you could have a circuit.
Let's have a one-man show.
Totally.
A whole telling stories.
Katie lives with that every day.
Yes, and he keeps getting funnier. So here's the thing funnier. I noticed too that what I experienced in being around the people I love is that we just get more lovable. And that's what I want for everybody, who's listening and everybody who's not listening, to experience love and being loved, so that you can play in life and enjoy and explore and be curious.
Well, I know we have to go, but I want to say, for those of you, I know it's bizarre that someone might be listening and not know you, but when I share this, maybe there will be. So let's say people who don't know you don't know that you and Gay have been together, 42 years now?
43.
Oh, 43.
How many?
43.
Wow. And so it's so cool because they're like newlyweds. It's like, ugh, gross, stop kissing, and it's so genuine. And, Gay, to hear him talk about my soulmate, I mean, he got her first, otherwise we would have been married. But he's like, every day with her, can you, the love, and it's not faded, it's only grown. And I think that's so inspiring to hear, because there's so many tropes and cliches about marriage. And for me, it's really important to spend time with these people who model what's possible with relationships and love and this commitment of marriage and what it can look like. And so, essentially what she's saying is like, he's becoming funnier, where most people you're like, oh my God, they're becoming more annoying. You hear them like, oh, and so it's really inspiring.
Thank you.
And
it's inspiring to me too.
Yeah. Well, both of you inspire each other, and that's what's so, infectious and people, it can be envious to people too. And so I would invite people instead to be inspired, because the tendency, I think, is to go, I don't get to have this. They do. The ubiquitous they, the Hendricks, the Jens, what bullshit, the last thing is, it's like, no, I don't want this to end. I don't want this to end. And so that's what play does. And that's what Katie and Gay talk about all the time with, like, being in your zone of genius or being in this space. It's time it just passes, and there's no sense of it. And I love that.
Thank you, both of you, so much. I love you.
Thank you.
Love you.
Hey.